So I know in the last video that I said I was going to update every 50 dungeons, but I just kind of went ahead and did another 150, so we're sitting at 200 dungeons done right now. And I was going to show every chest being opened, but it's kind of just going to lead to really long videos, and I wanted to keep this one a bit shorter at least. So I do have all of those saved in case someone calls me out for saying the results are fake or whatever, but for now, just gonna let this video of a solo dungeon play in the background. We are now 200 dungeons in, like I said, and we have only been forced out of a dungeon twice. There was one where there was like a group of at least four. I think they had more outside as well, that we ended up dipping on that dungeon, and there was one that was in the middle of a Terry fight, so we had to get out of there. But outside of that, all the rest of the dungeons were completely completed, and we've gotten something like two or three legendary chests. They were all pretty underwhelming, and right now, with the profits that we're making, I'm almost starting to believe that Mogdone was right, but I'm pretty sure we're still just running hot right now. And I want to just kind of talk about silver per hour a little bit. That's not really the point of this experiment, but I think a lot of people don't understand like the amount of silver per hour you can get doing this. The dungeon I picked in the background is a 3-floor dungeon, and it's a quite long 3-floor dungeon, and we got it done in a little over 10 minutes, and the run out was not that far, so you can say it was like 11 minutes or something like that total. And if you do that for every dungeon, just like 10 minutes each, the silver per hour is actually pretty insane on these tier 8 flats, because right now we're making about 25,000 off of the ground on average. We've gotten about 5 million off the ground in total, in just raw silver, and that's basically covering the map cost and doing more. And then just from silver bags and stuff we're getting from the chests, we're also making a really solid amount. Uh, and the loot hasn't been terrible. Obviously, it depends on the time of day, and sometimes it's been just really monotonous grind. And that's actually something I'm going to talk about later as well, not in this video, but in another one, about what SPI can do to make solo dungeons just less boring. Because right now they are a bit boring, and I can see that, but for in regards to silver per hour, uh, if you are doing these out of a rest like I am, I think doing them out of a rest is better. You get less divers, all of that, and it's just like less player polluted in general, so your solo dungeons usually do spawn like closer to the rest. The only problem is you're gonna have to transport, but at every rest there's always someone willing to also just buy your loot for about 70% of its estimated. um but silver per hour, so I'm not gonna say exactly how much we're making right now. I'll let that be the reveal at the end. But I do promise you that you're being lied to by people about how much you can make per hour. I think that you should just usually be being more juiced than you typically are, which also factors into the rest. Go to the rests to do them, they're way safer. The transport over is not even that bad from like Martlock to Arthur's Rest, how I did it. I've made it several times already, just going back and forth for different things. And you can do it in like 5 minutes. It's really not a big deal. Something a little bit obscure, but I think it's kind of worth mentioning, is that dungeon types actually matter. So, like, a keeper dungeon is drastically worse than a heretic dungeon or a Morgana dungeon. Maybe not drastically, but undead and keeper dungeons are way worse than Morgana or heretic dungeons for the simple fact that they don't have a chance to spawn a triple chest setup. So in the Wild Blood update, they introduced a triple chest setup for heretics, and Morgana has always had one. It's actually a quadruple chest in Morgana. Um, Morgana in general has a lot of extra secret chests. So Morgana chest counts are typically the highest, but now that Heretic also has a triple chest setup, the chest counts are higher in them, and they are the fastest to clear, and Morganas are the slowest to clear. So it could be debated which one is technically better. The Morgana ones are technically more valuable, but the Heretic ones are more silver per hour. You can't control what kind you get. You can if you're doing like group dungeons, not maps like natural ones, but for solo dungeons, the Heretic dungeons are actually kind of worth it now. They used to be pretty much the worst, only held up by the fact that they're the fastest to clear, but now they're in second place for value. I just thought that's something interesting to mention. If you're planning on doing this kind of similarly like a big solo dungeon grind to build a bankroll up, uh, I suggest that you get something that is clearing the 2 floor dungeons in under 10 minutes, and that includes the 90-second wait at the start. So if you aren't clearing like dungeons within that time frame, I can see why you think they're bad, but just don't be afraid. Bring a set that can fight if it needs to, but also clears well. Things like Battle Axe are very good. Even Bear Paws clear very, very fast. The Imp Stick also is very good. I don't know how good it is in a 1v1 versus a typical diver setup, but I know that it's very good for clearing. Obviously, the Blood Moon Staff, like I'm using, is very, very good. Things like Spirit Hunter should be avoided, Nature Stab should be avoided. These make it so you can go in cheaper, but don't get caught up in the, oh, I'm only investing a 4.1 set into this, so it makes it easier on like my bankroll if I die. Don't act like you're going to die, because you probably aren't if you're doing it how I'm saying you should. And once again, this is not an experiment to show silver per hour. I just wanted to talk about it a little bit. Um, this is just to show the actual value of the maps and get a decent enough sample size to try and tell a little bit of the story. The solo maps in general are again very underpriced right now, and people just have a perception that they're not worth doing. It's not a good activity in the black zone. This is better, that is better. And this is definitely not the most profitable. I'd say the myths are usually more profitable, but this is definitely the safest that you can be. I've only been forced out twice, and I've only actually had to fight somebody once, and we won because we juiced up correctly. So just understand that yes, the it is technically worse than something like Mists, but solo dungeons in general are not at all obsolete. They're not dead. Whatever that you've been hearing about them is simply not true. And I can understand an argument coming from someone saying, oh, well, they want to make progress towards gathering and something like that. That's totally understandable. But saying that you should be grinding your money in Mists to begin with for a very new player is probably just not going to be super helpful for them. I'd say do this kind of content, these solo dungeons, until you get somewhere around like 2 million, 3 million, something like that, so you can buy enough 6.1 sets to start getting better at doing myths and things like that. Or if you just want to chill time and you're not into PvP, doing solo dungeons like this, like as I've been saying, like this is super safe. This is just raw PvE, and it's better than sitting in the yellow zone all day doing them. When you do that, you're missing out on so much money, so much extra loot, so much fame too. Obviously, this isn't about the fame farm, but we've racked up about 25 mil fame credits right now. I don't know how much of that I had at the start. Probably a couple million. So I'd say at least safely say around like 20 million fame credits just doing this, but not a fame farm. It's just for raw silver, raw money, and it's very good in comparison to what everyone else has been saying. So after 200 dungeons, this is what our loot looks like. We are 3 tabs deep right now, and added all together, including the 5 million that we've picked up off the ground, we're sitting at 55,220,000 ish. And again, I do think we're running fairly hot at the moment. We've been getting good drops, we've been getting good chest counts overall. And if we're doing the math for this, that would make each map currently is worth 276,000, and we're clearing them at about 10 minutes a pop, so it's like 1.65 mil per hour. Obviously, these aren't the final results, but as you can see, they're not all that bad. Anyway, I'll see you in the next one.